Look, buddy, the delivery maintenance entrance is around back.
Excuse me? I work in this building. Step
Listen,
aside.
drop the attitude. You clearly don't belong here.
I have my credentials. Do not push me.
Pal, you're walking outside right now or you're detained?
Call your supervisor immediately. You are making a massive mistake.
Tuesday morning, 10:27, clear and cold. The Bodycam view bends the lobby lines and the microphone clips a thin slice of sound as if the building is humming through the recording. A uniformed security supervisor plants himself between the glass doors and a man in a plain dark suit, and his voice carries the practiced certainty of someone used to being obeyed. "You don't belong here," Victor Briggs says, and then adds the word that turns the air irreversible. "You're being detained." Jamal Taylor keeps his hands visible at waist-level phone in one hand, slim wallet in the other. He does not step forward, and he does not retreat like movement itself could be interpreted as guilt. Detained for what reason, Sir Jamal asks, and the question lands as both a challenge and a record. Victor's jaw tightens. For verification and for refusing to comply. A bystander in a gray hoodie pauses near the vestibule, half in daylight, half in lobby glare. The hoodie bystander lifts a phone, not dramatic, just steady, and Victor snaps his head toward it. "Put that away," Victor orders. "If you film, you'll be removed too." The threat arrives early clear and aimed at solidarity before it can form. Tuesday morning, 10:28, clear and cold. Jamal's face is calm in the way people get when they have decided not to be pulled into someone else's tempo. He looks like an ordinary man who sleeps too little, eats on the go, and tries to keep a schedule from sliding off the rails. There is no entourage, there is no spotlight, just a faint crease in his shirt cuff and the kind of tight knot in his tie that suggests he tied it fast in a quiet room. Earlier that morning, Jamal's routine had been ordinary on purpose. He had left a small apartment before sunrise, the kind of place where the coffee maker rattles and the faucet squeals until it warms, and he had checked the same 3 things he always checked. Phone charged, wallet in the inner pocket, keys clipped because pockets can fail when a day gets long. He had stopped at a corner shop, bought a plain black coffee, and stood outside for a moment to let the cold air clear the last fog of sleep. He had reviewed an appointment note on his phone, short enough to fit on one screen, and he had adjusted his pace to arrive early, not late, because late creates friction, and friction creates excuses. Jamal had walked into the hotel lobby expecting a quick interaction and an easy exit. The lobby looked like 100 other lobbies, polished tile, a front desk with a monitor glow, and elevators that opened and closed like indifferent doors. He had chosen it because it was neutral ground, public-facing, and predictable. Now Victor Briggs has turned predictability into a trap, and the exit is just a rectangle of glass that might as well be a wall. Victor points at Jamal's wallet. "Show ID? Now, 30 seconds or police will put you in cuffs." He says cuffs like he wants Jamal to picture metal. Jamal's voice stays even. "Are you claiming a crime or are you issuing a trespass request?" Victor's eyes harden. "Obstruction." Victor says, and the Bodycam microphone clips the first syllable of the word, shaving it into a muffled sound. The audio imperfection creates a micro-consequence immediately, because the accusation will later be argued, what was said, how it was said, and whether the threat was real. Jamal does not react to the clipped word. Jamal reacts to the intent. Refusing to waive rights without clarity, he says each word calm enough to sting. Tuesday morning, 10:29, clear and cold. The lobby's fluorescent buzz seems louder in the pauses, and the echo makes every command feel bigger than it is. Maya Chen behind the front desk looks up from her screen and freezes with both hands hovering over a keyboard. She is the kind of front desk agent who keeps the lobby moving by smoothing small problems before they become big ones. Now the problem is standing 15 feet away, wearing authority like armor. Victor takes a half step closer to Jamal, close enough to make it personal, but not close enough to look like a shove on camera. "Hands where I can see them," Victor says. Jamal lifts his palms a little higher. They are visible. Victor's nostrils flare at the refusal to be rattled. "This is private property," Victor adds, and he says it as if the words erase rights. The hoodie bystander raises the phone another inch. Victor's head snaps again. "You," Victor says, pointing without looking away from Jamal. "You're interfering. Put it away or you'll be trespassed. I'll have your name before you leave." The hoodie bystander's shoulders tense, and the phone wobbles for a fraction of a second, like the hand considers lowering it. Jamal glances toward the bystander's phone and then back to Victor. "Threatening a witness is escalation," Jamal says softly. Victor laughs once, witness Victor replies. "This is my building." Maya pushes her chair back, and the chair squeaks too loudly as if it wants attention. She steps out from behind the desk with a notepad in one hand and a small peppermint tin in the other, the tin clicking against her palm. Mr. Briggs, Maya says carefully, should the general manager be called. Victor turns on her fast. Stay in your lane, Maya. Tuesday morning, 10:30, clear and cold. A second security guard appears near a hallway corner. Younger, uncertain posture, stiff like someone who has been trained to back up power without questioning it. Victor points at him. Call Denver police. Tell them an uncooperative subject is refusing lawful screening. The younger guard hesitates. For what exactly? Victor cuts him off. Now. Jamal watches the younger guard's phone come out. The screen is slick, and the guard fumbles the unlock, twice thumb sliding off the glass. It is a tiny delay, but it adds a beat of suspense because it proves how quickly this can become official, even when the basis is vague. The hoodie bystander lowers the phone, a hair eyes flicking to Victor's hands, then raises it again. Victor sees the hesitation and pounces. That's right, Victor says to the bystander. You don't want to be part of this. Jamal's jaw tightens in a barely visible way. Before police arrive, Jamal says, confirm whether I am free to leave. Victor answers instantly, hungry for control. You are not free to leave. Jamal's eyes do not widen, and that steadiness irritates Victor more than anger would. Jamal nods once like confirming a box on a checklist. Then request the incident number when officers arrive, Jamal says. That number will be repeated out loud for the recording. Victor points a finger in Jamal's face. You think your words protect you? Jamal's reply is quiet. Words become records. Victor's radio crackles once, then dies into static, and Victor slaps the radio against his vest as if the device betrayed him. Tuesday morning, 10:31, clear and cold. Maya glances at the lobby camera dome, then at the glass doors, then at Victor. She is weighing a decision that could cost her a job. She picks up the desk phone and presses one speed dial button, then another, keeping her voice low. The line rings once. A voice answers with half a tidal chamber, and then the call drops into dead air. Maya stares at the handset like it insulted her. The dropped call becomes more than annoyance. It is a procedural delay that Victor will exploit. Victor hears the ring and turns sharply. Who are you calling? Victor demands. Maya swallows. The general manager, she says. Victor's smile is thin. He's not coming for you, Victor tells her. He's coming for me. The hoodie bystander shifts their stance as if ready to leave if Victor comes closer. Victor notices. Keep filming, Victor says, voice suddenly softer. I'll make sure you're banned from every property we cover. The threat is vague, on purpose, designed to feel bigger than it is. The hoodie bystander's phone shakes again, and the cost of solidarity becomes visible. Jamal turns his head slightly toward the bystander without making it a performance. You don't have to speak, Jamal says. Just keep the angle steady. Victor's eyebrows jump. So you're directing witnesses now? Jamal's voice does not change. Refusing to waive rights without clarity. Tuesday morning, 10:33, clear and cold. The glass doors open, and cold air slips in with the first officer, the kind of winter breath that fogs the lobby for a second before the air conditioning eats it. The officer's body cam points forward, and overlapping microphones create a faint phasing effect when he speaks. What's going on? The officer asks, eyes moving quickly between Jamal and Victor. Victor steps in fast. Uncooperative subject, Victor says. Refusing screening. Trespass. He's obstructing. The officer looks at Jamal. Sir, can you tell me why you're here? Jamal answers without biography, like the question is only about immediate facts. An appointment, Jamal says. Attempting to enter a public lobby without harassment. Victor scoffs. Appointment, Victor repeats. Sure. Jamal does not rise to it. Jamal's hands stay visible. Requesting the incident number for this call, Jamal says to the officer, and requesting the stated reason for detention. Victor interrupts. He's not answering you. The officer holds a hand up toward Victor. Not aggressive, just firm. Let him speak. Tuesday morning, 10:34. Clear and cold. The officer shifts his weight and keys his shoulder mic. Dispatch confirm call number. The radio hisses, then a tinny voice answers. The first word gets swallowed by static, but the number comes through. Call number 5610. The officer repeats it clearly. Call number 5610. Jamal repeats it equally clear, anchoring the record. Call number 5610. Victor's mouth tightens as the number becomes a nail in the timeline. The hoodie bystander adjusts their phone to capture the officer's mouth, saying the number, making sure it is recorded from two angles. Victor pivots to the bystander. Turn that off, Victor orders. You are now part of the problem. The officer glances at the bystander, then back to Victor. Sir, the officer says the bystander can record. Victor's smile returns forced. This is private property, Victor insists. The officer answers in plain language. Private property does not erase the right to document. Victor's eyes flare like he hates hearing it out loud. Tuesday morning, 10:35, clear and cold. Victor tries to reframe fast. He came through a side entrance, Victor claims, pointing vaguely toward the elevators. Restricted area. He's suspicious. Maya's head snaps up. He came through the front doors. Maya says, voice shaky but firm. Victor turns on her. Maya. Maya's hand tightens around her peppermint tin and she keeps going. He walked in like everyone else. The officer's eyes sharpen. Is there video, he asks. Victor answers too quickly. There's always video. Jamal steps into the opening. Requesting evidence preservation, Jamal says. Who controls CCTV and what is the retention period? Victor laughs once. You think you run this building. Jamal's reply lands softly but cleanly, requesting the answer. The officer looks to Victor. Who controls CCTV? Victor hesitates, then names it like a burden. General manager. Maya glances at the phone again, remembering the call that dropped. The officer nods. Then call the general manager, the officer says. Victor's jaw tightens. He's not available, Victor replies. Tuesday morning, 10:37, clear and cold. The officer steps slightly aside with Jamal trying to lower the temperature. Sir, if you show ID, this ends, the officer says. Jamal looks at the officer's body cam and answers like the words are meant for later review. If the goal is resolution, Jamal says documentation resolves it. ID without clarity becomes precedent. Victor hears precedent and bristles. He's threatening, Victor says. Jamal turns toward Victor, not angry, just direct. That is not a threat, Jamal says. That is boundary language. Victor points at Jamal's wallet again. ID, Victor repeats. Now. Jamal's voice is steady, refusing to waive rights without clarity. The hoodie bystander whispers barely audible. He's saying the same line, and the phone steadies again, as if the repetition gives the bystander courage. Victor suddenly steps toward the hoodie bystander instead of Jamal. Give me your phone, Victor says, reaching out. The hoodie bystander jerks back. Do not touch me, the bystander says, voice shaking. Victor's hand hovers close enough to be a threat without contact. Then stop filming, Victor says, or I'll call it interference. The officer turns sharply. Sir, step back, the officer orders Victor. Victor freezes, then withdraws his hand with a small irritated motion, like he cannot believe the officer corrected him. Tuesday morning, 10:39, clear and cold. The officer keys the radio again. Dispatch, send a supervisor. Security is claiming detention authority. Dispatch answers after a slight delay, and the audio lags half a beat behind the officer's mouth movements, creating a sync confusion that will later be used to muddy the timeline. Supervisor en route, ETA 12 minutes. Victor scoffs. 12 minutes, Victor says. That's too long, Jamal answers quietly. 12 minutes is shorter than the damage of a wrongful detention. Victor snaps, voice rising. Stop talking like that. Jamal does not flinch. Refusing to waive rights without clarity, Jamal repeats, and the officer glances at him as if noticing the discipline behind the calm. Victor reaches into his vest pocket and pulls out a badge-sized shield on a chain, flashing it quickly. The body cam catches only a blur of metal and a number washed out by glare. Victor lifts his chin. Security authority, Victor says. Special deputy arrangement. The officer squints. Hold it still, the officer says. Victor hesitates, then holds it up again. The body cam auto exposure blooms under the lobby lights, washing out 2 digits. The tech imperfection becomes consequential because it prevents immediate verification. Jamal's voice remains level. Requesting dispatch, verify the badge number, Jamal says. Read the number out loud. Victor's face reddens. This is ridiculous, he says. The hoodie bystander takes one step to the side, trying to catch the badge in a cleaner angle on their own phone. Victor notices and turns his glare back to the bystander. You're not clever, Victor says. I will make sure you regret this. Tuesday morning, 10:41, clear and cold. The second security guard moves toward the bystander, not touching but crowding. Sir, the second guard says to the bystander, you need to leave. The bystander's phone stays up. The bystander's voice shakes. I'm not leaving until this is clear. The second guard's eyes dart to Victor like he is asking for permission to push. Maya steps out from behind the desk again, and her voice is small but sharp. "Stop," Maya says. The second guard looks at her. Maya's hands are trembling, but she points toward the lobby camera dome. "It's all on camera," Maya says. "It is not a heroic line. It is a practical one." Victor pivots toward Maya. "You're done," Victor says low. "After today, you're done." Maya's face tightens. She does not argue. She simply reaches for the phone again, the one that dropped earlier, and dials the same extension with steadier fingers. The line rings. It rings longer this time, and the long ring becomes its own tension loop, will anyone answer, before Victor forces something irreversible. Tuesday morning, 10:43, clear and cold. The supervisor arrives. A sergeant with tired eyes and a measured voice stepping in like someone who has seen authority misused enough to recognize the pattern. The sergeant's body cam adds a second record, and the two recordings overlap different microphones, catching the same words with different clarity. The sergeant listens for 20 seconds, then asks one question. "What is the legal basis for holding this man here?" Victor answers fast. Refusal to comply with screening. Suspicious behavior. Private property. Jamal speaks calmly. Requesting the stated reason for detention and requesting to be free to leave. The sergeant looks at Jamal. "Sir, why are you here?" Jamal keeps it simple. "An appointment," Jamal says. Attempting to enter and leave without being blocked. Victor cuts in. "He won't show ID." The sergeant lifts a hand. "Stop," the sergeant says, and the single word lands like a break. Maya's phone call finally connects. A voice answers on the other end, clearer now. "Chambers," the voice says full this time. Maya's throat tightens with relief. "Mr. Chambers." Maya says quickly it's Maya at the front desk. "Security is detaining a guest in the lobby. Police are here." There is a pause, then the voice sharpens. Detaining Chambers repeats. "Stay there. I'm coming down." That closes one open loop before halfway, the dropped call is corrected, and the general manager is now in motion. Tuesday morning, 10:45, clear and cold. The sergeant points at Victor's shield. "Where did you get that?" the sergeant asks. Victor's jaw tightens. "Company issued," Victor says. The sergeant turns to the first officer. "Dispatch, verify that badge number," the sergeant says. Victor tries to interrupt. "This is internal." The sergeant cuts him off. "It became a police matter when you said he was not free to leave." Jamal adds calm. "Call number 5610. The sergeant nods once, acknowledging the record. The hoodie bystander's phone captures the nod, and Victor's eyes flick toward the phone with an expression that looks like a threat and a plea at the same time. The second security guard shifts closer to the hoodie bystander again. "You need to step outside," the guard says, and his voice is low enough to sound like a warning. The hoodie bystander's phone dips slightly, then rises again. "Do not come closer," the bystander says. The bystander's voice cracks on the last word, and that crack becomes proof of cost. Solidarity is not free when someone with power decides to make it personal. Victor leans in toward the second guard and speaks under his breath, but the body cam catches enough to be damning. "Get his name," Victor says. "Find his plate." Tuesday morning, 10:47, clear and cold. The sergeant hears it. The sergeant's head turns sharply. "Nobody is collecting anyone's plate," the sergeant says. Victor's face tightens and his shoulders stiffen as if he is about to argue. The sergeant's voice drops. "Step back." Victor steps back. Dispatch returns through radio hiss with a tone that changes the room. Sergeant badge number does not return to any active sworn assignment. No record found under special deputy program. The sergeant repeats it out loud so the cameras hear it. "No active sworn assignment," the sergeant says. Victor's mouth opens, then closes. "That's wrong," Victor whispers, and his voice is suddenly smaller. The sergeant turns to Jamal. "Sir, the sergeant says you are free to leave." Jamal nods once. He does not celebrate. He simply moves his feet a few inches toward the glass doors, confirming that the block is over. The first small payoff lands. The detention ends publicly on record because verification did not support Victor's claim. Victor flinches at the words "free to leave." "No," Victor says, stepping forward as if his body can rewrite procedure. "He can't just—" The sergeant holds up a hand. "He can," the sergeant says. "You do not detain people." Tuesday, late morning, 11:02, clear and cold. Jamal pauses near the front desk instead of leaving immediately, and the choice blocks the "why not just leave" question with a concrete constraint. If Jamal walks out now, Victor's story could become the only written story, and the CCTV could be overwritten later without anyone preserving it. The second constraint sits beside it, The hoodie bystander is at risk now, threatened with identification and retaliation, and walking out would leave that bystander isolated. Jamal turned slightly toward the sergeant. Requesting evidence preservation, Jamal says. CCTV retention and a written acknowledgement. The sergeant nods. General manager is coming, the sergeant says, glancing at Maya. Maya's eyes flick to Victor, then back to Jamal, and Maya's hand tightens around her peppermint tin. Victor's voice returns, trying to rebuild authority with volume. You're not running an investigation in my lobby, Victor says. Jamal turns to Victor and delivers the viral boundary line with clean timing. Refusing to waive rights without clarity, Jamal says, and refusing to leave evidence unpreserved. Victor points at Jamal's wallet again, desperate. ID, Victor says. Show it. Jamal answers without heat. Not to you. The short reply does more damage than argument. Tuesday, late morning, 11, 10 clear and cold. Chambers arrives from a side hallway in a crisp jacket, moving fast enough to look concerned without looking panicked. He stops when he sees the sergeant and the cameras, and his eyes take in Victor, Jamal, Maya, and the hoodie bystander in a single sweep. What happened, Chambers asks, and the question is not friendly. Victor steps forward to speak first. Sir, he refused screening Chambers' cuts. Victor off, not you. Chambers says, eyes locked on Victor. Start with Maya. Maya's throat tightens. She swallows. Mr. Briggs told him he didn't belong, Maya says. He blocked the doors. He said detained. Chambers turns to the sergeant. Is that accurate, Chambers asks. The sergeant nods. Yes, the sergeant says. Badge claim was unverified. Detention ended. Chambers' face hardens. Preserve the cameras, Chambers says, and he says it like an order to the building itself. Victor's mouth opens. Sir, it's internal. Chambers' eyes do not soften. So is your employment, Chambers says. Victor freezes. Tuesday, late morning. 11:18, clear and cold. Evidence becomes action, not explanation. Chambers leads the sergeant, Jamal, and Maya toward the back office where the CCTV workstation sits, old equipment humming behind a locked door. The hallway feels tighter than it should, and the carpet muffles footsteps, making voices feel louder. Chambers unlocks the office and gestures toward a chair. Export will be made, Chambers says. Jamal does not sit. Jamal stands near the doorway where the cameras can still see his hands. Requesting chain of custody, Jamal says. Who exports, who stores, and written confirmation. Chambers nods once. Maya will witness, Chambers says, and Maya's eyes widen at being pulled into the process. Victor appears in the doorway, face tense. This is my workspace, Victor says. The sergeant steps between Victor and the room. Not right now, the sergeant says. Victor's jaw works like he wants to argue, but the uniform blocks him. Chambers logs in. The monitor flickers once. The cursor stutters, lagging as if tired. Front doors. Chambers says, clicking. Elevator bank. Desk area. Jamal's voice stays steady. Export the segment that shows entry through the front doors, Jamal says, and the segment where detained is spoken. Maya leans in, pointing. Front desk audio is separate, Maya says quietly. Sometimes it drops. That admission matters because it warns everyone that the record will be attacked on quality. Chambers nods. We export video and audio tracks, Chambers says. If audio drops, we document it. Tuesday, late morning, 11:24. Clear and cold. The export progress bar appears and crawls. 12%, 19, 23. Then it freezes. Chambers taps the mouse once. Nothing. It sticks. Maya whispers, and her voice sounds embarrassed, like the building is misbehaving in front of witnesses. The freeze becomes the failure tax. Evidence is at risk, and the room feels smaller with every second. Jamal's eyes stay on the bar. Retention window, Jamal says, not as jargon, but as a pressure point. How long do clips stay before overwrite? Chambers answers carefully. Storage is variable, Chambers says. Usually around 30 days, sometimes less when occupancy is high. Jamal nods. Then time matters, Jamal says, and delay matters. Victor laughs bitterly from the doorway. Listen to him, Victor says. He thinks he's running court. Chambers turns his head slightly. Leave, Chambers tells Victor. Victor's smile flashes angry. You can't tell me to leave my office, Victor says. The sergeant's voice stays flat. You can be removed from this office, the sergeant says, and the words are calm enough to be scary. Tuesday, late morning, 11:28. Clear and cold. Chambers reseats the USB drive and tries again. Careful hands now because the stakes have moved from embarrassment to accountability. The progress bar jumps to 41%, then crawls again. Chambers exhales slowly. Maya's peppermint tin clicks open and shut in her pocket, as if her hand cannot stop moving. The hoodie bystander remains in the lobby phone, still recording, and the second security guard circles them like a shark that cannot bite because a cop is watching. "You're trespassed," the second guard says to the bystander low. "If you don't leave, you'll be arrested." The bystander's voice shakes. "For filming," the bystander asks. "For interfering," the guard says, eyes hard. The bystander looks toward the glass office wall where silhouettes move. The bystander's phone stays up, but the bystander's shoulders tremble. The cost is visible now the bystander is being targeted for doing the most basic solidarity action. The sergeant hears the raised voices through the office door and keys his radio. "Officer, stay with the bystander," the sergeant says. No retaliation. The first officer answers copy, and the response is clear enough to anchor the moment. Tuesday late morning, 11:35, clear and cold. Chambers' computer coughs, the fan whirring louder, and the progress bar continues like it is dragging a weight. Victor's voice rises outside the door, cutting through the hallway. "You're all being played," Victor says. He's lying about an appointment. Jamal does not look at Victor. Jamal looks at the export bar because winning an argument is meaningless without a record. Chambers glances at Jamal as if reassessing him. Sir Chambers says cautiously, "We can also verify your appointment internally." "It would help," Jamal answers without revealing identity. "Verification is fine," Jamal says. Later, "Preserve the footage first." Chambers nods, and his nod is the first sign of institutional backbone aligning with procedure instead of ego. Maya steps closer to the screen, eyes wide. "It moved," Maya whispers as the bar hits 70%. Her relief is fragile, like the bar could snap back any second. Tuesday afternoon, 12:03, clear and cold. The progress bar hits 92%, and then the screen flashes. A window pops up. File write interrupted. Chambers inhales sharply. "No," Chambers says, and it is the first emotionally raw word he has spoken. Maya's face drains. Jamal's eyes narrow, still calm, but the room tightens. Victor's laugh cuts through the hallway. "See," Victor says. "Nothing to preserve." The sergeant turns his head toward the door, and his eyes are cold. "Stop talking," the sergeant says. Victor's voice falters for the first time. "I'm just saying," Victor starts. The sergeant interrupts. "Stop." Chambers looks at Maya, voice low. "Cloud backup," Maya says quickly. "The portal. It's slower, but it verifies." Chambers hesitates. "That requires corporate approval," Chambers says, and the sentence is a gatekeeper wall, human and procedural. Jamal's voice stays steady. "Requesting a preservation notice be issued today," Jamal says. Failure to preserve becomes its own problem. Chambers looks at the sergeant. The sergeant nods once, and the nod is not emotional, it is institutional. "Do it," the sergeant says. Tuesday afternoon, 12:11. Clear and cold. Chambers calls corporate compliance on speaker. Hold music plays faintly tinny looping, and the silence between loops makes the fluorescent hum sound deafening. Maya stands with her hands clasped, peppermint tin pressed in her palm so hard it might leave a mark. Victor's voice drops lower outside the door, trying a different tactic. "Maya," Victor says softly, "you don't want to be mixed up in this." Maya's eyes flick toward him, then away. Victor continues, voice with false kindness. "You have bills? You have a job. Don't burn it." Maya swallows. "Stop," Maya says, barely audible, and her voice trembles like it is breaking a rule. Victor's eyes narrow. "Excuse me," Victor says. Maya's voice steadies by half an inch. "Stop," Maya repeats. It is the second time she appears as the emotional anchor, and this time her small, brave action is to refuse Victor's intimidation. Tuesday afternoon, 12:18, clear and cold. Corporate finally answers. Chambers speaks fast, precise. "We have an incident involving unlawful detention claims and a requested evidence preservation," Chambers says. "We need cloud export authorization now." There is a pause. The corporate voice asks one question. "Is law enforcement present?" Chambers glances at the sergeant. "Yes," Chambers says. "Then approve," the corporate voice replies. "And document." Chambers exhales sharply and turns to the monitor. The portal loads slowly spinning wheel, then a login prompt. Chambers types, and the password fails because caps lock is on. Chambers mutters under his breath, angry at the tiny error. Maya reaches in with one finger and flips the key back. Caps lock, Maya whispers. Chambers tries again. The portal accepts. The export starts. It is slow, but it moves. Tuesday afternoon, 12:26, clear and cold. An email notification pops into Chambers' inbox. The subject line includes the venue ID, and the message body includes a long string of letters and numbers that confirm integrity. Chambers looks at it like it is a lifeline. Jamal speaks softly. "Print it," Jamal says. "Now." For chain of custody. The printer whirs, then pauses, then whirs again, like it is deciding whether it wants to cooperate. The paper emerges warm and slightly curled, smelling like toner heat. Maya watches the page slide out and her eyes sting. The physicality of the paper makes it real. Chambers signs the printout, and the pen leaves an oily smudge near his signature where his hand hesitated. Victor stands in the hallway watching through the glass with an expression that looks like anger trying to hide fear. Tuesday afternoon, 12:31, clear and cold. The sergeant steps into the hallway and faces Victor. "You claimed special deputy authority," the sergeant says. "Dispatch says no record." Victor tries to hold his posture. "Dispatch is wrong," Victor says. The sergeant's tone stays level. "Then your company can provide documentation," the sergeant says. "Today, not later." Victor's eyes flick to the lobby to the hoodie bystander still recording. "Tell that person to leave," Victor says. The first officer answers immediately. "No," the officer says. The short refusal snaps like a cord. Victor's mouth opens, then closes, and his eyes dart down for a moment. He swallows loud enough that the body cam catches it when he speaks again. "This is being blown up," Victor whispers. The whisper is the villain crack moment, beginning fear showing through the edges. Tuesday afternoon, 12:38, clear and cold. Jamal returns to the lobby with Chambers, Maya, and the sergeant, and the space feels different now because procedure has replaced Victor's performance. The hoodie bystander's phone is still up, but the bystander's face is pale and tense, like someone who has been holding breath for an hour. Victor turns toward Jamal, attempting one last posture move. "If you were legitimate," Victor says voice tight, "you would have shown ID." Jamal looks at Victor and answers quietly, a line short enough to travel. "Legitimacy is not proven by surrendering to intimidation." Victor's lips press together hard. The sergeant turns to Jamal. "Sir," the sergeant says, "for verification, can you provide identification voluntarily now?" Jamal nods once. "Yes," Jamal says. Jamal produces a driver license and holds it, so the sergeant can view it, then lowers it again. Controlled. The license shows DOB 14th of September, 1974, and XP 22nd of November, 2032, and the name line reads Jamal Taylor. The sergeant's expression shifts subtly, then he slides it back with respect. "Understood, Your Honor," the sergeant says, and the title lands like a detonation. Victor's face goes blank for a beat. The lobby quiets. Maya's breath catches. The hoodie bystander's phone dips an inch, then rises again as if the hand could not believe what it heard. Victor's voice comes out small. The what, Victor says. Jamal's voice stays even not theatrical. "United States District Court," Jamal says. "This detention was directed at a federal judge. The identity reveal happens through dialogue, not narration, and the entire earlier scene recontextualizes at once. Tuesday afternoon, 12:41, clear and cold." Victor tries to recover with denial, but it sounds hollow. That's not verified," Victor says. The sergeant answers calmly. "It is now," the sergeant says. Chambers looks at Victor like he is seeing him for the first time. Maya's eyes glisten, and she looks down quickly before anyone notices. The hoodie bystander whispers barely audible. "He really did that," and the whisper sounds like disbelief and relief mixed together. Jamal turns slightly toward the hoodie bystander without making a show of it. "Thank you for holding the record," Jamal says. The bystander's shoulders drop, and the phone lowers for the first time. The bystander looks exhausted, like someone who just ran a long distance without moving. Victor's hand trembles as it goes to his radio, then stops halfway, because there is no radio call that can undo what was said aloud on camera. His eyes break contact and stare at the floor tiles, and the tremor is not anger anymore. It is fear. Tuesday afternoon, 12:52, clear and cold. The first medium payoff begins to form immediate discipline and documented consequences. Chambers turns to the sergeant. "We will file a written report," Chambers says. "We will provide the export receipt and footage to your department and to the contractor's compliance unit." The sergeant nods. "And there will be a report about the badge," claim the sergeant says. Victor's voice rises frantic now. "This is a misunderstanding," Victor says. Jamal answers quietly, and the quiet makes it sharper. "It was an action," Jamal says, "not a misunderstanding. Victor flinches. Maya steps forward and hands the sergeant a small slip of paper with her handwriting. It is not dramatic. It is the corporate case number she got while on hold, written carefully, and it anchors the next phase. The sergeant takes it and reads it out loud for the body cam. Maya's face tightens at hearing her own handwriting become official. Tuesday afternoon, 1:09, clear and cold. The sergeant turns to the hoodie bystander. Do you want to make a statement? The sergeant asks. The hoodie bystander hesitates, eyes flicking to Victor. Victor's glare tries to return, but it fails under the weight of the title, Your Honor. The bystander swallows. Yes, the bystander says, voice shaking. He threatened to take my phone and find my plate. The sergeant nods. That is retaliation, the sergeant says plainly. The officer steps closer to the bystander, not touching, but protective creating space. Victor's shoulders sag a fraction as if the room is sliding away from him. Jamal looks at the bystander and speaks one sentence that will later be repeated. Solidarity is not safe, Jamal says, but it is sometimes necessary. The line is not a speech, it is a fact. Tuesday afternoon, 1:22, clear and cold. Chambers asks Maya to step into a small back office for a moment. Maya's hands shake as she walks peppermint tin clicking softly in her pocket. Chambers closes the door halfway, not fully keeping transparency. Maya Chambers says what happened here is serious. Maya nods throat tight. Yes, Maya says. Chambers' voice softens, and the softness is its own kind of backbone. You did the right thing, Chambers says. Maya's eyes fill, but she blinks fast. He said I'd be done, Maya whispers. Chambers' reply is immediate. You will not be done, Chambers says. He will. Maya exhales, shoulders dropping for the first time all day. That is the second tier of payoff, beginning internal protection for the emotional anchor and visible accountability for the villain. Tuesday, late afternoon, 5:18, clear and cold. The scene shifts through action, not a list. A courier arrives at the hotel with an envelope and a signature pad, and the pad makes a small electronic chirp when the pen touches it. Chambers signs, and his signature is slightly shaky. The envelope is addressed to the security contractor's compliance unit, and the language is plain preserve footage. Preserve records, do not alter schedules or logs. It is a preservation notice delivered with a real-world object and a real-world sound. Victor stands nearby, no longer positioned like a supervisor, now positioned like a problem. A contractor manager arrives face-tight and asks Victor quietly, "What did you do?" Victor's mouth opens, then closes. "I followed procedure," Victor says weakly. The manager's eyes flick to the sergeant. The manager swallows. "Not that procedure," the manager says. Tuesday morning, 9:07, overcast and windy. A conference room with thin walls catches every outside footstep, and the HVAC kicks on with a cough. An internal affairs investigator reviews CAD entries tied to call number 5610, then listens to dispatch audio again, and the clipped syllable in obstruction becomes an argument point. Victor tries to exploit it later. It's unclear, Victor says in a recorded interview. You can't even hear the accusation. The investigator does not debate. The investigator triangulates. The officer repeated your claim, the investigator says. The bystander's phone captured the full word, the investigator adds. And the sergeant documented that you said not free to leave. Victor's eyes flick down. I meant temporarily, Victor says. The investigator's voice stays calm. Temporarily is still detention, the investigator says. Tuesday afternoon, 3:22, rainy and gray. Chambers sits with corporate compliance on a video call screen refresh, lagging once every few seconds, faces stuttering into pixel blocks. The compliance officer asks a simple question. Does Victor Briggs have any legal authority beyond private security? The compliance officer asks. Chambers answers plainly. No, Chambers says, and he claimed he did. The compliance officer's mouth tightens. Then this is misrepresentation, the compliance officer says, and it is unacceptable. That closes another open loop. The badge claim is formally confronted by institutional verification, not rumor. Tuesday morning, 10:14, clear and cold. The hoodie bystander appears again, not in the lobby, but in a small police substation interview room, hands clasped, phone on the table. The bystander looks tired, and the tiredness is a cost paid in private. The officer across from them speaks gently. Did anyone follow you after the officer asks? The bystander swallows. A security guard walked outside, the bystander says. He looked at my car. He didn't touch it, but he looked. The officer nods. That matters, the officer says. That is intimidation. The bystander's shoulders sag. I almost deleted the video, the bystander admits. The officer answers without dramatics. Do not, the officer says. We will preserve it properly. The bystander nods, eyes glossy relief mixed with fear. Tuesday afternoon, 2:06, clear and cold. Maya returns for her third appearance in a different way, not as a witness frozen behind the desk, not as a brave caller, but as a person sitting across from corporate HR peppermint tin in her lap, telling the truth in short sentences. HR asks, did Victor Briggs tell you to stay in your lane? Maya answers yes. HR asks, did he threaten your job? Maya answers yes. HR asks, did he block the doors? Maya answers yes. Each answer is a brick, and together they build a wall Victor cannot climb. Not. Tuesday morning, 8:48, clear and cold. Victor Briggs sits in a contractor office with a manager and a compliance officer, shoulders rigid trying to look unbroken. A printed email chain sits on the table, dot matrix grain visible in the paper texture, the kind of printout that feels old-fashioned and damning. The compliance officer slides it forward. The subject line reads like a warning that was ignored. The compliance officer taps one line with a pen. You were told to stop displaying that shield, the compliance officer says. Victor's voice comes out strained. It was part of my uniform, Victor says. The manager's voice is flat. It was part of your ego, the manager says. Victor flinches as if struck. The compliance officer's tone stays procedural. You represented authority you did not have, the officer says. You detained a person without cause. Victor's hands tremble slightly under the table, and he grips his own fingers to stop it. Victor tries one last time to shift blame. He didn't belong there, Victor says, and the words sound smaller now, like they are collapsing under their own weight. The compliance officer looks at him steadily. Your feelings are not a legal basis, the compliance officer says. Victor's eyes go wet for a second, not from remorse, but from fear. He swallows loud, and the swallow is the moment he realizes the magnitude of his mistake. He whispers, I didn't know. The manager answers in one sentence. You didn't ask, the manager says. Tuesday, late afternoon, 4:37, clear and cold. The medium payoff lands. Victor is removed from the property contract and placed under review for misrepresentation and retaliation. The contractor sends a written notice to the hotel acknowledging wrongdoing in plain language. No codes, no legal theater, just responsibility. Chambers posts a revised lobby protocol behind the front desk. No detention by private security. Written trespass process. Only supervisor call required for escalations and automatic receipt for complaints. The paper curls slightly at the bottom edge from dry air, making it look real, not ceremonial. Maya touches the edge of the posted protocol once with 2 fingers, like she is confirming it exists. She exhales, and her shoulders drop in a quiet way that looks like relief without celebration. Tuesday morning, 9:33, clear and cold. The story's final phase arrives not as a summary, but as a sequence of earned consequences. A meeting room with a long table fills with hotel leadership, contractor leadership, and a compliance monitor. The coffee in the corner smells burnt. A projector fan whirs, and the screen flickers once before stabilizing. On the screen, split views appear: the hotel CCTV angle and the police Bodycam angle, slightly out of sync at first. Someone tries to claim the clip proves nothing, because audio is imperfect. Then the bystander's phone video is added as a third angle, and the missing syllable becomes irrelevant. Victor's voice saying you're being detained is present in at least one clear track, and the others confirm the context. The 3-source triangulation closes the last remaining doubt loop without relying on any single device. Chambers speaks in plain language, pointing to the footage with a pen. This is where Victor blocks the doors, Chambers says. This is where he says, not free to leave. This is where he threatens a bystander. The compliance monitor nods, and this is where dispatch confirms no authority, the monitor adds. Jamal does not speak much in the meeting. Jamal's presence is not about domination. It is about institutional gravity. When Jamal does speak, it is one sentence calm and direct. Refusing to waive rights without clarity, Jamal says should not require a title to be respected. The sentence boomerangs later in the last third as the moral center without becoming a lecture. Tuesday afternoon, 1:12, clear and cold. The large end payoff is delivered with paperwork, but the paperwork stays inside action. A representative slides a settlement and penalty agreement across the table. The paper is thick, the kind that makes a soft thump when it lands. The amount is stated plainly: $27,000 in penalties tied to contract compliance failures and misrepresentation. The agreement requires reforms. retraining badge and uniform audit complaint receipts, and independent monitoring of CCTV retention and export procedures. The compliance monitor reads one line out loud. No private security employee may state a person is detained, absent law enforcement direction, the monitor says, and the wording is simple enough to be understood by anyone listening. The monitor looks at Chambers. Will you implement this? The monitor asks. Chambers nods. Yes, Chambers says. The monitor looks at the contractor representative. Will you enforce this? The monitor asks. The contractor rep answers without hesitation. Yes, the rep says. Victor Briggs is not in the room. His absence is its own consequence. The system has removed the person who misused it. Tuesday evening, 6:08, clear and cold. The lobby is quiet again, but it does not feel the same. Maya stands behind the desk peppermint tin in her pocket, watching a guest roll a suitcase across the tile. The guest smiles at her. Maya smiles back, small, genuine, and the moment looks ordinary, which is the point. Ordinary should be safe. The hoodie bystander walks through the lobby one last time, not filming, now just passing. Maya meets the bystander's eyes and nods once. The bystander nods back, and the exchange is silent, a recognition that solidarity had a cost and a purpose. Chambers steps beside Maya and lowers his voice. You did the right thing, Chambers says again, as if repeating it makes it permanent. Maya exhales, shoulders dropping. So did they, Maya says, meaning the bystander and the officers and everyone who held the record together. Near the glass doors, a small framed sign now sits on the counter, complaint receipt provided. Maya touches the frame once, then lets her hand fall. Her eyes glisten, but she does not cry. She simply stands straighter, like the building has finally aligned with the people inside it. The end. Afterward, mandatory value. Add, closing thoughts. If a confrontation starts, keep hands visible and ask one clear question: what is the reason specifically? If someone claims detention or demands ID without clarity, calmly request a supervisor and repeat the incident or call number out loud for the record. Preserve evidence early by asking who controls video retention and how a lawful export will be documented. If a bystander films focus on safety and de-escalation, rather than arguing because retaliation threats should be documented, not matched. When audio or video quality is imperfect, seek independent verification through a second angle, a dispatch log, or a written acknowledgement. Justice is rarely loud. It is built on verified facts that withstand pressure. Some elements are selectively fictionalized for education.